I think we're all here.
Yeah. Madam Chair, if I might?
Yes, go ahead.
I have asked Gus Pago to come with his staff, he'll introduce. We have a pending grant for the University Transportation and Management Association of Sweetwater, UMTA, pending for service development operations. I've been briefing them before you got here, Gus, on the details. This is their second meeting, so they've seen it twice, and they have a copy of it before them. This is the board constituted and created by the city of Sweetwater. Tom Hartley was appointed by FIU, or nominated and then approved by the commission. The three of the members were appointed by the nominated by the mayor, approved again by the commission, and the fifth member, which is Phil, he was recommended by the first four and then approved again by the city commission. So this is a city commission approved board. They are here on staggered terms. Some have 2-year terms, some are 3-year terms. The commission can't change but 2 a year. They cycle up only two at a time a year. It's a very stable board. It was designed to be business oriented, not a political board, and to figure out how to run the best community transit they could, combine with FIU's CAT system. So that's introducing UMTA, and I've introduced you to Gus because he's the one at District 6 with his staff who decides the priorities and the expenditures of the DOT as allocated to him through Tallahassee. So I wanted to make sure that the board had a chance to ask Gus questions, and Gus had a chance with his staff to ask you questions. And the most important one is, when do you think the awards for the pending grant will be announced?
Well, the fiscal year has already started, but we're waiting for central office to get the apportionment from the federal government in order to announce when we will, but it will be soon. Because the federal fiscal year ends at the end of this month, so it should be within the next few weeks.
Okay. And the person most important in that process in Tallahassee is still Ed Covens and people
Correct.
above him.
Correct.
Ed is the head of the transit office in Tallahassee, so they have to allocate between districts who gets what money.
Correct.
And so that's all good news. So in other words, you're still in the hunt because they haven't allocated yet, and therefore they haven't awarded yet. Right? Then it just depends upon the merits of your grant. And the biggest thing, just in behalf of the board, Gus, I wrote most of this. But what we're trying to do is reinvent multimodals. We're not trying to run another community bus system that's empty most of the time, which unfortunately many of them are. We're trying to include the ITPA system funded by Tiger so that there's communication going on between customers and the driver. And we're trying to let the route vary a bit on a demand basis so you can get more riders to fill the bus with customers that both FIU will commit to their students to, and Sweetwater will commit their residents to. It also means that instead of having an FIU system, which is paid for by the students and run for the students, but it can't stop and pick up a citizen of Sweetwater, even if it's convenient, and that Sweetwater is getting their money from CITT, and they can run, but they're really running it to the benefit, and most of the time, in the city of Sweetwater, very little in FIU, that by merging them, we get instantly a better system. We get 70,000. 50, 60,000 students, 20,000 or so residents. We're serving everybody in the area, and we're trying to think through not only how to be a community transit system, but how to be a feeder bus system to commuter rail if it happens, to express bus when it happens. So it begins to look more like BRT and more like a modern transportation city you might see in many places other than in the US of A. In other words, the European, the South American, Brazil, and Colombian experience. So that's what we're trying to do. And as you know, we've been writing about it at FIU for a while, starting with a grant from MDX, but this is the culmination. And the most important thing, and Gus has been in the University City project from day one, but it was all capital. And the trouble is with capital, is you got a good partner in Sweetwater, you got a good partner in FIU, and we're trying to put together $16 million worth of improvements. And when the capital project's over, everybody's just going to drift away. You're the operating entity. You're representing both parties. You're going to carry on and make sure that things get maintained, that make sure that vehicles that are built get operated, that ITPA that gets built. and eventually you'll get into maintenance of other joint assets that neither party wants to trust the other to do. And so the whole point of it, because it's included in our package, is that I created, with the city attorney and with the general counsel off of FIU, a bylaws that gives them incredible powers. You really ought to spend some time at it, because they're not only operating small transit, small smart transit, and smart parking. Tell the drivers where the empty spaces are so they don't wander around looking for them. They also can do any activity referenced in the University City grant, which, if you'll remember, I wrote very broadly. So if they're going to improve the well-being in the best interest of FIU and Sweetwater residents, visitors, etc., they got the authority to do it. They got to get the money, they got to get their partners to participate. But if you're looking for an ongoing partnership between the two to do all the things that neither one of them want to do individually, this is it. On here are people of wealth, people of business experience, of governmental experience. It's the best board I could find. And the commission helped put it together with the mayor. And even though the commission and the mayor are like oil and water at the moment, they're all agreeing on University City, and they're all agreeing on this group to be their operating entity for University City. So they don't have to fight over it at the commission level, which makes FIU very happy. So that's sort of an extended version of what's in our grant package. And if you can ask questions or want to express anything, we'd very much appreciate it.
Okay. Can I go up there? Or?
Sure.
Thank you, Tom, for inviting us to be part of this momentous occasion. It's not often that you see something being created from the beginning. You know, usually the baton gets handed to you and you're running with it all the time. Certainly that's how I feel in my job. I've been with the department 36 years, and it seems like someone else has just handed me a project to get done or the like. You know, the University City project is one that we're quite excited about because we're only a couple blocks north of here. Okay, we're part of Sweetwater. You know, I personally have lived in Miami since 1959, and all of us at the district, you know, drive through here, eat here, live here, and you know, so we do have a good symbiotic relationship with both FIU and Sweetwater. That being said, you know, we do have supportive programs to help transit better reach that last mile. Okay. And that's kind of what we're talking about here, is using technology to help us minimize congestion in our communities, while at the same time getting our transit systems more robust with ridership. Currently in Miami-Dade County, it's about 2%, some depending on figures, 3% ridership. If we could double that, that would be great. Everyone wants to see the other person get out of their car, but we got to make it convenient. We got to make it comfortable. And to the extent we can use transit to either be a transit Uber, I would call it transit Uber, you know, or the like, within the rules of engagement. You know, my team is here, Lisa Caminares,
Hi.
and Dion Richards, that can answer all the technical questions. But more than that, I want to be here to lend our support any way we can. We do have a sub-area mobility grant to help study the area and determine the best routes and how best we can make this investment in Sweetwater and FIU. Let's look at the reality. You know, if you look just to the south, FIU, its building boom has migrated north into Sweetwater. Your residential facilities now constructed. People were just talking about it 2 years ago. Imagine how things have changed in just 2 years. And Miami's like that, you know, so we have to be adaptable. And to the extent our programs can help you adapt, our programs can help you move people and goods within and around the city, we're certainly here to help. 107th Avenue is one of my roads that in the next couple of years you'll see under construction. So we'll be transforming that major arterial within the city into a much more friendlier. Right now it's gridlock most times of the day, and that affects everyone. It affects how much time you spend with your families. If you're in your car in congestion, you're not at home where you should be. So certainly we want to help the city and the university, make Sweetwater the very best it can be and make FIU the very best it could be. Unless there's any specific questions, I'll be ready to answer any. If not, I'll let you know that I'm always available. I have a few business cards here. I'll be more than happy to drop them off with you. I won't give you my doctor's card. I think I have enough there.
Well, Mr. Pego, we look forward to the opportunity. I think that, we all either work or live around here, and you're correct. 107th Avenue is gridlock, and this area of Miami-Dade County is really, the amount of people that go through the expressway and the turnpike and are living here now and are living just to the north in Doral. I mean, this area is a very intense business community, and this type of transportation is not only needed to keep people off of the 836 and off of the turnpike and to get to Brickell, but also to service FIU, which we think is one of the great universities of this state. So, we look forward to working with you. We look forward to your help.
Great.
Sir, thank you for coming. With your wealth of knowledge now that you're here, what would be your idea? Can you give us some suggestions on what it is that you're looking at, what we're about to create?
Well, we have, operating grants that will help you once you get going. We have capital grants that help bridge, at least 50% of the capital we do match. Now, what you need to do is really what Tom has laid out a good framework of trying to put that vision into reality. The integration of transit systems with FIU such that there's a mutual synergy of picking up patrons, that ability to do so would certainly help more people and keep them out of their cars so you're less congested with the city. Try to create Sweetwater as a more vibrant, walkable community, especially on 109th Avenue. 107th Avenue, we're also making improvements towards livability with wider sidewalks, and that congestion that's really choking from A Street all the way to Flagler is people avoid. So why go 107th Avenue if you could jump on the turnpike? People jumping on the turnpike are not going to your businesses. So where it makes sense on your shorter trips, let's make sure that we help mobility, because with more congestion, your marketing radius decreases. So the more mobile we can continue to make Dade County, the larger our marketing radius becomes. So it's very important that we connect with each other. One of the biggest conversations today is transit throughout Miami-Dade County. What should be the priorities? And while we try to tackle those problems in coordination with others, we still have to worry about how do you get folks in that last mile, and that's the big buzzword now. How do we? Okay, well that's good. You got them to there. Well, how do I get home? And this is not up north where you might be comfortable standing outside most of the day. We turn our jacket just to get from the car up here because what happens in 90-degree weather. Okay. So in the rain, we have a different climate zone, so we have to take that into consideration. So providing patrons the information about when transit's coming to them is critical, because if it's the uncertainty is why people don't take transit. The uncertainty of when it's coming. Did it break down? Will I get to my appointment on time? And if we can shorten those areas of uncertainty, then the risk becomes less to take transit. Then we might get folks out of their vehicles. And then the planning that goes together into making this work is essential. Plan to plan and deliver the plan.
Are there meetings that FDOT has that you would recommend that the board's represented at?
The Metropolitan Planning Organization, is the umbrella by which all transportation planning happens in Miami-Dade County.
Mm-hmm.
Some argue whether it's effective or not. I won't get into that debate. It's the body that we have. And then so That being said, there are committees of the MPO that advise the MPO on priorities, and you know, certainly there's probably one of the committees, you know, might, you know, there's a citizen advisory committee, you know, there's technical committees, so you could reach out to the MPO to find out what the charter is for each of the different committees.
Okay.
And see how you might be able to get involved. Even just listening and monitoring what's going on is good. We also have our work program public hearings, which is a good source of information that we have it in person, or you can do it virtually even by internet. That it's in September, late this year, September.
One is on the 17th and the other, I think my meeting is on the 24th.
Right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we can provide you some information on that.
Wonderful.
So, I mean, you'll see what we're doing as far as a 5-year planned work program. And, you know, the uncertainty we have today is that the federal government continues to kick the can down the road with short-term extensions, which makes it difficult for all of us in the transportation industry to effectively plan beyond, you know, 6 months or a year.
Let me,
Which
let me stress that. The federal government's budget isn't still open. It hadn't been closed yet. So the state, who spends all the federal dollars, doesn't know what it's getting from the feds until they settle on a bill. Now, the bills used to be 6 years long. In fact, the first bill was written to create the interstate. It lasted about 40 years. And then they started doing 6-year cycles. Well, now they're down to doing 3-month cycles. So at the federal government, there's a big problem of creating a ricocheting down to the state, because we don't know how much money we got because the feds haven't told us. So in that uncertainty, it's good to A, pay attention, and B, concentrate on state funds, which are at least a reliable 1 year to year standpoint, and to look for the grants that will pop up. What's good about the federal government is that they'll eventually fund something, because they really won't shut it down. But what Gus is saying, it's chaos out there. If we can just do one small piece right, we can attract money. My argument has not been that there isn't a river of money, even if it's treacherous on occasion. It's that, do you got something new to offer? Or are you trying to do same old, same old? Same old, same old is a long line. New and fancy and better and achieving things unexpected, shorter line. So at least that has been my
Yeah.
experience with Gus and others.
Yeah, with a lot of help, Tom has been able to get some Tiger grants, and you know that you know you know, doing a project like this, and you know, getting it started, it's like planting you know, a crop of corn or tomatoes. You know, planting that seed and then nurturing it to get to for it to grow. And that's where I think, you know, you guys as the foundation, you know, sharp business owners and a cross-section of the community that can say, hey, this makes sense. And, you know, oftentimes government said, you should be thinking like business. And, you know, I think there are a lot of merits to that. You know, and while on the other side, we in government are continuing to strive for that business-like environment. So we're here to help you. We're a customer-driven organization. And to the extent we can, we will. And you have my commitment and the district's commitment for that.
One of the things, if I have all their email addresses, who can I send that to in your shop that would at least circulate them so that FDOT knows there's a new entity in town?
Yeah,
These are the
send
people
it to
on the
me,
board.
and then
Okay.
I'll send it to the team.
Okay.
And then you know, with a little charter, you know, summary of what their focus is, and
Okay.
that will help me communicate your mission. Any other questions you may have?
Anybody else?
Sorry, I could not give more guidance today. I think that we're all in the evolution of trying to make a difference in our community, and I appreciate you stepping up to help us do so.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Secretary.
Thank you
for
very
coming
much.
out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, I have to head out. I have another.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll leave you with
Thank you.
these
Just give me 1
experts
second.
from DOT while I walk this out.
So do you have any questions for us? Raul, do we have any questions for?
Well, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to having more contact with you, being able to move forward and get into the, as I said, the nitty gritty to be able to make this work. So I'm excited.
As the secretary mentioned, that we're a customer-driven organization, and we're here to help you in any way that we can. to just to support your efforts, because anything that would reduce the congestion, we're full in favor.
Hopefully before the end of the meeting, we can get your cards, your business card, contact information. Well,
I'm sorry, I ran out. I have 4.
Oh, thanks.
But as you mentioned, the email sent to him, he will definitely get them to us.
Wonderful, wonderful. No, we thank you and the secretary always, really and truly, such an accessible, helpful leader at all times.
And we're literally just a couple of things
Hey,
away.
exactly. I was going to tell you. I mean, with my city hat, I do work for the city. I represent the city on this board, and we've been through so many projects successfully. LAP projects, the widening. So I mean, FDOT is an agency, a partner that we really count on, and it's always walked the walk and gotten great projects done. So this will just be another feather in the cap for our. But it's growing. Well, that's a good thing. Before you would cooperate, with Sweetwater now we have the business community, FIU, everybody. So we're getting the bigger picture. We really are walking the walk. We're doing the multimodal thing for better or for worse, and just launching into it.
And for the DOT, if you haven't been involved in all the day-to-day stuff, our construction component is a design build. It's going to launch and be done by 2018, but probably will. Robert and I are both on with Steve Sauls on the selection committee. So we've been through all those hurdles, and we're about ready to launch the construction phase of the infrastructure. We're about ready to start the construction phase on the vehicles, and we've been in construction of the Informed Traveler program, the very customer-oriented ITS software we're building for about the last year. And they'll all come together by 2018. And the theory is to get them into a good operational mode by 16, 17, so that when all the technology and the infrastructure is done in 17, 18, they're operating in what looks like a wholly different kind of Sweetwater city, and better connecting their extremities to the express buses that Dade County and others intend to have delivered by 19. So it's important for them to get operational now in phasing for a number of components that are all funded in line and scheduled to be built.
May I ask a question?
sure.
You mentioned that the service, you would be connecting to the express buses and possibly to the commuter rail line. How about connectivity now to Miami-Dade Transit?
Yeah. In the grant, there's let's see, let me get the right one. In the grant, there is a route that we've identified, 4 of them. And it's in, at this scale of looking at it, it doesn't show up as well as I'd like, but it is on pages 11 and 12 of the pending state grant for operations. But basically, it creates 4 routes where there currently is really 2. It puts 5 or 6 vehicles on the street at one time instead of 3. It in every way makes the vehicles which are being partially funded under Tiger better and smarter, and it integrates itself with the existing Miami-Dade bus system, because so many of those buses are stopping on 107,
Right.
as well as the 1212, which is the local circulator in Sweetwater that Miami-Dade Transit runs.
Tom, I'm sorry for.
So we're integrated with the bus system, but our real focus is to integrate with the express system, so that when the express system comes in place, it's not running empty. So it's a feeder bus system, very much like Bogota, Columbia, and other places that have very serious bus rapid transit. And bus rapid transit being managed lanes, plus great pedestrian space, plus feeder bus system, and then good equipment. And you got to have all those things, and that's what we think we're building towards. But absolutely, it's feeder bus system in conjunction with the Miami-Dade Transit local bus system, which is also another form of, when you look at it, feeder bus system to express buses, and in Dade County, feeder bus system to Metro Rail. That's why all the buses end up in Metro Rail, because it's a feeder bus system to Metro Rail.
The last Arise, which was intended to be a transit hub, it was just an idea, was located because of this concept in University City, and is now up and operating. And we have 2 housing towers that are now totally built. Is this second one open yet?
Yes.
Yes,
it is.
sir.
Yes, it
So
is.
now we have 2 housing towers open and a transit hub already built, ready to begin to accept those.
Buses when Dade County is ready. So, yes, both express and local bus system. But remember, at the end, when you look at international systems and their highest efficiency at bus rapid transit, they require a feeder bus system to support them. And we will be the fine tuning of that at the local level in combination with Miami-Dade Transit, which is working at a more regional level.
So in one way, we are developing a new urban place around where we're sitting, following the principles of sustainability, and we will have a signature pedestrian bridge. But that pedestrian bridge with plazas at both ends will also be augmented by this new enhanced circular bus service, which is being operated now by a joint independent venture that was started through FIU and Sweetwater.
And I know you weren't here when I introduced Steve, but he's the former Vice President for Government Relations at FIU. He's now back at FIU in a part-time capacity, monitoring my mishaps in areas dealing with both University City and climate warming. But basically trying to get everybody to start thinking about how do you build a much better future, and how do you work within the parameters that DOT sets so that we're functioning as part of the DOT answer.
Anything else?
They never let me go without training wheels.
No, I just want to thank everybody for here for your service, because this started with a vision, and it started. Robert was there in the beginning, and there was an idea that we began to look for possibilities, and we just wouldn't say no, and we followed the vision of the dream, and it's really quite amazing. Even today, I saw this building for the first time, and I haven't really been in PG6 yet, but there it is. I saw the pedestrian bridge from PG6 across the road, which President Rosenberg insisted on, and there it is, and students are using it, and it's going. And so the idea of the vision is very real to us, because we are been successful with good partners in terms of making a new urban place happen, which will have all kind of benefits in terms of people living and working here, because it's a more viable place to live and work.
Right, so we've built bridges in many regards.
But one of the things that it started with a paper that actually I wrote back in 2009 and then followed up in 2010 with MDX that Steve was very helpful on. How do you grow the new American economy? And one of the things you do is you concentrate your money. Politics says spread it. Sort of like fertilizer, spread it everywhere. Doesn't have any effect, but it makes everybody feel good. Concentrate it a little bit, up grows the economy. Now you got something to work with to pay back. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to mass a certain critical mass of improvements in the FIU Sweetwater area on purpose. We're the West Dade hub. And everything that we're doing, quite frankly, 109th, we want to turn around and do on the other side at 12th and 111th, or in that region, because that's where the train will end up, more or less. And so if you start thinking of it in terms of reinventing multimodalism, you got to improve the pedestrian component, you got to improve the feeder bus system, you got to improve the core express transit, rapid transit. It can be bus, it can be train, it can be anything you can dream up. But you got to put all the components together, because one of the components working alone doesn't work. Just having a regional bus system isn't enough. It's too slow, it doesn't serve certain needs. You have to augment it with other components. And that's what we're trying to at least answer, at least a Western Dade node that happens to be centered at the Dolphin and the Turnpike interchange.
I think, any other questions? I think we're okay.
No, I think you summed it up, Tom. That's what really needs to happen here, and your office is here, you see what happens at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's gridlock coming from Miami, it's gridlock going up and down the Turnpike, and then 107th is gridlock most of the day. So it's
Yeah, every time.
so would really, I mean, whatever is done here will be very successful because the need is so strong.
And the only last thing I want to say is I tried to have this discussion with Mark Rosenberg at a meeting he convened with Gus Pago and others. And getting in your car should be the last choice you make. The first one is, can I walk there? We want a whole bunch of yeses. We've improved the walkability, and a lot of the places I need to get to, I can get to if I walk, or bike, or I can take a one-way, 1 hour lease on a car and get there and make that happen, or I can get community transit, or I can get on the bus, or I can get on the train. And the last thing I think about is getting on my car. And if I'm lucky, I get in my car once a month, which is why I need ITPA to tell me where I parked it. Then you're starting to build the kind of transportation system that mimics the most successful, prosperous communities in the world, and not simply repeating a suburban response that we've been working on unsuccessfully for a while. So it is a big change, but it's one that the city has embraced, and it's the one FIU has embraced, and it might be a little startling, but we have a good experiment, and it's going to take us, a couple decades to find out if it works, but nobody else is volunteering to wholesale change their environment, their built environment, in order to progress. So we need your help for our next baby step. If there's no more questions, you can stay or not as you want, or if you have any other questions of us.
Last question, I promise. The housing units that you have, are they mostly students that live there, or is it a combination?
No, they're mostly students.
Mostly students,
Absolutely.
only students for the one down
For
there.
the 109 tower?
Exactly,
Yes.
that's only, they have some sort of an agreement, and then the tower down there.
By
It
far,
would be
by
Exactly.
far mostly students.
It's mostly, but the other tower,
Commons.
is it open to others?
It's open. It's
Okay.
open. So
Yes.
the only difference was, on the one closest to the school, there's no parking. So the agreement reached with the city was that if the owner of that building were to restrict themselves to parking, and therefore they have a right to park across the street, everybody'd be happy, and that worked sort of well. And then when the next building went up, he built his own parking interior to his building, as is normal, and it's open to anybody, student or otherwise, though they're marketing it to students more than they are anybody else. But that can change. They have no restriction on the second tower.
One or two more planned, right?
Yes,
There's
yes.
at least 3 more out there trying to get out of the ground.
There's
One's
one
pretty
more.
far along.
There's one more Southwest 4th Street and 107th Avenue. They've even pulled they've gone as far as to do a demolition permit where the Continental Bank is, and you'll see that they've already.
That's really far.
Yes, so that should be number 3. And but as you can tell, just anecdotally, just if you drive up in on 109th and you see who's coming from the 4th Street and 109th building, you'll see that it's overwhelmingly student population.
So what we did was, the Tiger grant is to create a complete street, which is US DOT language, out of 109th. Widen the sidewalks, narrow the street, make it a walking street. So, I mean, we're doing it. The question is, can we now add the transit component on top of the ITPA component and really get the thing working at all levels? Much like the magician who's trying to keep plates up on that stick spinning. We're trying to spin 2 or 3 plates at the same time. And this is our next big plate. Because if that operation grant comes through, these guys have a vigorous $1 million budget, and then we have to see how well they do with it and whether they can justify 2 more repeating years. It's up to you. But the point is, you give them a chance to prove what all this new infrastructure and technology means. And we're half embedded into it because we've already got the capital improvements on the vehicles done. That was part of Tiger plus last year's service development grant. Now we're looking at how do we operate a 10-vehicle fleet. We don't have enough money unless we get the matching funds. And then how do we integrate that to the infrastructure, which changes. So it isn't so much cars going down 109th, it's pedestrians and the occasional community transit vehicle. It's very akin to turning it into Venice. Instead of gondolas, we got community transit. It's not designed for lots of cars. It's designed for the exact opposite. Therefore, you need parking. So we're sorting through all those issues, and we're getting progress. Really, a lot of progress, given the size of Sweetwater. If you start thinking about sleepy Sweetwater is not sleepy anymore. It's actually making a great partnership effort with FIU and DOT and Miami-Dade Expressway and Miami-Dade Transit. they've been the ones all at the table pushing the various pieces of the agenda forward.
No.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much. If you want,
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, if we can get to the next agenda item.
Okay, thank you for
Um,
coming.
Thanks again.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, we
Thank you all.
appreciate it. Pleasure.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for taking it.
Thank you very much.
Good, you got it.
Next item on the agenda is I've put together, at least in the detailed budget, which I don't think we have in front of us, what I thought was mission and priorities, because that came up in the last meeting. And then I sort of blended it into what's in your bylaws. So instead of going into that, you may want to look at that electronically when you get a chance. That's what I've got.
Okay.
Robert came up with some additional items. They were interesting because we might want to weave them together, and at our next meeting, see how many of these issues you want to consolidate into a mission statement if you want to have one.
Okay.
Robert?
Just so that, yes, what I did was I kind of did like a little informal best practices thing. I went to see what other TMAs have done with respect to defining their mission, vision, et cetera. This is pretty much generic in any, well-targeted, informed government, nonprofit entity. So at any rate, this is just my first stab at something that could be, mission, vision, values, and goals statements. I think actually on some of these I hit on things that have been talked about here. For instance, partnerships, sustainability, connectivity, etc. That this is a very, very, very elemental, work in progress. So please feel free to take a look at it,
Okay.
add words, edit, erase, whatever, and then this is just commencement, so that way we can keep on working off of this. And of course, whatever is in other documents, just as part of suggestions, Tom, bring it up and just, where we could insert it.
If I might, I want to take what you have written, Robert, blend it in to what I put in the detailed agenda, which was simply cutting and pasting out of your bylaws what was in there. And what you need to do is take out your red pen and take away the words you don't like. Because I'd be using whatever Robert says is standard operating, whatever is in our bylaws, and then if you can help us boil it down maybe at the next meeting as to what you want the mission to be, and then shorten it, it becomes really a brochure that's explaining who you are when you start marketing yourself. So if you have a copy of that for me too.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And like I'm saying, from a client oriented perspective, if a resident approaches me on what is this, I would like to be able, to give them something like this that just paints the picture, because
Absolutely.
So anyhow, that's about it. At the next meeting, what we could do is if we could place an item just like this one on the next agenda, then we could come with our comments and perhaps start already heading towards a finalized version.
I'll blend all your words together with the words that came out of the bylaws and let you figure out the stuff you want to keep or delete or
And
revise.
you'll give it to us before the next meeting?
Well before the next meeting.
Okay.
I'll try to get it out right away.
Yeah, I could send you an electronic copy if it's appropriate.
Okay, perfect.
Because it's not going to be that hard blending them. Madam Chairman, is
Yes.
the next item on the list?
Where?
Unless you want to continue with priorities and mission. I just want to get us through the 5 or 6.
Yeah, I think we need to speed
Okay.
it up.
ITPA is quick. I've asked for a briefing, not only for Steve, Ken Jessel at FIU, but of also this board. And the folks who are building ITPA are developing that briefing so it's up to date and current. It's certainly going to be ready for your next meeting, and I suggest a next meeting in that couple weeks, but it'll be up to you to make that decision. So somewhere in the next couple weeks, they're going to give their briefing to FIU. As soon as I can get on Ken Jessel's calendar, that exact same briefing will be given here when you next meet. As to the next item, update on the proposed Miami-Dade Express, I got nothing new on that. just to tell you that the express bus service is still timed for 2019, but it's too late for us to get up and operating our feeder bus system when their express buses show up. We've got to be up and operating before them, and we've got to have all the bugs out of our problem. Here's the good news. There will already be an express bus system. It'll be operated out of PG5. It's called the Golden Panther Express. Now, it isn't ideal. It goes from here to the Biscayne Bay campus. We don't have any other plans for it to go any other place, although I keep reminding Tom that someday we ought to let it stop at the MIC every now and then just for fun. But the point is, we'll have an express bus system that'll be operating, and we'll have a community transit system with students in it. Now, how can we, again, between now and 2019, play act as if that was an express system? It is, going to Biscayne Bay campus, so that we work out the bugs, so that when Dade County shows up with its express bus system, we sort of know how to do it. We know how to get the vehicles intertwined, connected, ITPA advised, etc. So we want to use the existing express bus system as an experiment, so that when Dade County shows up, we're working the next day with this 2019 bus system. It is complicated. There is ITPA implications to this, but we do have your community transit coming into place in 16, and the express bus already operating, and ITPA fully coming into existence by 18. So we ought to, in the 17-18 timeframe, know how to do interconnections between community transit and express bus at a high level of efficiency, and then transfer that knowledge when the Dade County express bus shows up. But I'm going to get Miami-Dade Transit to come in and give you their view of the world on express bus as soon as I can get them, as soon as I have enough notice to get them to your meeting. The next item is the aerial cable. Again, nothing new to report, except that they're off and running. Their report will be done in about 6 months. It will talk about a cable express from someplace on the north side of the Dolphin, near 107th, to the engineering center at Flagler and 107. That much the report is going to happen. And I haven't debriefed with the university, but the other people that were there was Grant Stewart, myself, and our estimate is that that's what they're going to do. They're going to recommend that highly. So if in fact your train station is on the north side of the Dolphin, in or around 12th and 107th, and there's an aerial tram that goes to the engineering building, what you've done is you've eliminated the congestion on 107th, where it congests no matter what highway improvements you make, because there aren't enough cross streets. So that becomes a very important part, because if you think that through as a train station technology, all of a sudden the train station is handling express bus and an aerial tram and dispersing people from it without putting everybody on the highway. So I'll learn more about cable and report if I get more, but that's what I got. The East-West Commuter Rail had a meeting. I didn't attend it. I was busy on other matters. My intention is to catch up through Steve and through Michelle Placio, who's involved in all transportation matters, and make sure that as soon as we know there's going to be an East-West Commuter Rail and any specific details about it, that we get that to you by bringing the principals in. The Commissioner Bovo of Dade County is the one who's championed having it. There's a high probability they're going to have something in 2 or 3 years that looks like commuter rail. The whole issue of where the station goes is an unanswered question, and the sooner you decide to take an interest in that, the sooner you may have your way with that decision. In other words, nobody knows where the station goes. You're in exactly the well-positioned place to advocate if you have any amount of conceptualization of what it might look like, where it might go. And although it takes a little money, you'd be the first in place to have a recommendation. City of Sweetwater is probably not going to do it. FIU is not going to do it. MPO is going to look at it on a big level. Nobody's going to look at it at a very fine grain, except you. So I do encourage you to consider getting into that game sooner than later. The station is the most important decision they made. The decision to have commuter rail, I think, has been made. The University Sams, I've got a copy. I don't have it approved yet. I'm not going to go through the details, but we've made progress. Just got another email from Michelle asking for the latest copy, which is the one dated September 1st. It explains to everybody what I would think a $400,000 study might buy us. It starts with a market in Montreal and it ends with a theater in Italy. And it says that's the kind of spaces you want to build if you expect people to get on transit. High quality public space, attracts, holds, and then transit comes and takes them away. Any event, this is not final yet. It is a grant that would be administered by FIU, not by you, not by Sweetwater. We would need $100,000 out of Sweetwater, $100,000 out of FIU, and $200,000 to the DOT. The DOT's already appropriated the money. According to the city, if we ask them for the money in 16, they're probably going to say yes. And the same thing will probably go for Ken Jessel. So this is something that if we can get approved in concept, we'll launch in 2012. It won't be looking at just the station for the train. It'll be looking at what are the multiple issues associated with improving accessibility to the University City area. And the one page I will show you is the University area is that oval that goes from north of the Dolphin Mall to south of the Tamiami Park. It includes all of FIU and all of Sweetwater. And it says, how do you get this people in this oval either out west to 137th or east to the MIC? That's the question that the SAMs would answer. And it's a lot of different questions. So having you think about the station while this looks at a bigger picture would be a great 1-2 punch.
Is there a way we could get a copy of what you have?
As soon as I get it approved.
Oh, okay.
Okay, perfect.
This was conceived in the context of the Tiger Grant, okay, and initial commitments were made at that time. This area, FIU and Sweetwater, is one of the, by virtue of FIU being there, one of the largest destination points in Miami-Dade County. The other being Aventura, downtown, Dayland, but without any intentional planning here. So this is trying to fill in the gap and do intentional planning document in terms of what would be solutions, transit solutions for this area, will then allow, but be a tool then you could use to justify what you're doing and what the university wants to do in the next short term, midterm, long term.
And specifically, it would give you discrete projects to go pursue, consistent with a conceptual plan. And it's specifically answering the question, okay, we did University City, what do we do next? What do we do after that? So this is designed to answer those questions. It will not be fine-grained enough to tell you where to put that train station. It will just say the train station belongs somewhere, on 12th. The trouble is, there's a great spot and a good spot and an average spot, and there's a horrible spot west of the Turnpike. So if you can weigh in and get it narrowed down to the best spot, that would be an important contribution in conjunction with SAMS, which is going to deal at a slightly larger scale. But SAMS will, in my opinion, get launched and certainly underway by January of 16, if I heard the budget numbers right from talking with the city chief of staff and anticipating Ken Jessel's own budget issues that he has to deal with. Everybody has to deal with budgets, but I think it's something that could get cranked up as early as January. We ought to, if you're going to do a station study, you ought to be doing it between now and January. So it's a given that we work with in SAMS.
Yeah, some insights on who the key stakeholders are and what their position will be and how we can influence that would be very, very helpful.
Yeah, key of SAMS, the key stakeholders
Right.
is FIU, Sweetwater, DOT, but Miami-Dade Transit, Miami-Dade Public Works, not only DOT District 6, but District 4, because we're looking at the express bus that comes out of Broward and stops at the Palmetto. Should it come from the Palmetto Expressway up to us? So we can now link all the way to Broward County, actually, in Sunrise. And the other stakeholder is the Turnpike of the DOT, a separate organization, sub-organization within the DOT. There's District 6, there's District 4 in Broward, and there's the Turnpike. 3 different separate, And then there's MDX, MDT, Sweetwater, FIU, and you.
Right, and knowing exactly where they're gonna push to get it and why. I mean, because that's, at the end of the day, that's
Well-
what we need to bring together is, how those different decisions impact those different stakeholders. So if we go in with a broader knowledge on
Well,
strategically.
The theory is that's what really SAMS is for. And again, this is another nuance. We're trying to get it done internal to the staff of FIU. No guarantees yet. But if we can get it done internal to the staff of FIU, School of Architecture, School of Engineering, etc., then what we're going to come up with an answer that FIU likes that satisfies the needs of Sweetwater, because that's what study is for, and then make sure that all the other projects that are going on, there's a whole bunch of them, not only 107, but they're looking at a corridor study on US 41 that that's growing up. It has its own life, and the trouble is that all these different projects, some of which the Turnpike with no access points designed 10 years ago, they didn't even think about FIU. So what we're doing is asking everybody to go look at their project again with a different set of eyes. What would it look like if you were thinking about University City? And then hopefully make subtle changes in all those projects so they're more a comfortable fit. That's what this is supposed to do if we get it launched in January. Your thought process should be, okay, thanks very much. In the next short period of time, they're going to put in a commuter rail, and if we don't speak up, they're going to put the station wherever they want, wherever they are, mostly Dade County government. If you speak up sooner and help facilitate the station location, you get to call the shots, and people will follow behind that. So you have this relatively short time frame to be influential in that decision. And after that, it'll just be wherever somebody else puts it. I think we would be very supportive of whatever you came up with as a location, and we hit home with this after you told us where the station goes. And put some thought into it with an appropriate review of the options and focusing on the most preferred option. Anyway, I did forget, there's one more item. We're already past it on the agenda, but when
Number 6.
we're going to do the budget, I forgot, I handed this out. I just want you to look at it. It's an email. And it's me telling the gentleman I'm working with at the College of Engineering for Mechanical and Materials Engineering how we're going to work out their budget. I was hoping I'd have it here today, but I didn't. The good news is the gentleman that wants it at DOT, this is our budget for the capital improvements to the vehicles, isn't in town. He won't be in town later this week. So tomorrow or the next day, I'm going to finish the budget. It's going to be consistent with the paragraphs 1, 2, and 3. I'm summarizing what the budget will be, of how I intend to create it. It is a budget that is approved at the university level and DOT as a courtesy to you. As soon as I get it, it's going to you. And if you have a meeting, feel free to speak up, tell me what to change, and if I can, I will. But I'm negotiating between DOT, which has a set of rules, US DOT, which has a set of rules, FIU, which has a set of rules, and Sweetwater, which has a set of rules. I'm trying to write a budget that doesn't cross anybody's red line. It's not been easy, but I've just about got it done, and you'll be the last person to see it. If you spot something you don't like, speak up and I'll fix it, if I at all can. But that's getting close. I was having meetings right up till 12 noon today to sort of resolve continuing disputes that seem to be working out well.
I think we're on to 11.
Yes.
The next board meeting and scheduling of regular board meetings on at least a quarterly basis. There's another matter. I mean, can we tell the commissioner of the district to come by? I mean, to let, okay.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about
You have a
that.
county commissioner,
Yes.
Pepe Diaz, who has an interest in what we're doing. I've briefed his staff who comes to city commission meetings, Olga Hernandez, is it? And I think he's interested. So the sooner somebody talks with Pepe Diaz from this board, not me, not on behalf of FIU or anybody else, but on behalf of yourselves, I think that would be a wise thing. He certainly is a significant player, and Gus has to figure out where to prioritize his money, and having the county commissioner supporting it is better than not. We've got the city commission supporting it, you know, we got the university supporting it. You know, I think time and effort with Pepe Diaz would be a wonderful addition to our efforts to convince DOT to give us the money, the $500,000.
So we haven't reached out formally, sent him a letter or anything, letting him know that we've been,
I've had 2 conversations with Olga, in both occasions urging that they get up to speed with it. They sat in when I made a very clear presentation, handed out the grant, handed her the grant, so they've got it. But it wasn't for me to go further. It really has to be somebody on this board that sits with him and make sure you understand the grant well enough for the $500,000, the one that says 21617, and that it does relate to the one from 15, because one's capital, to get the vehicles, and the other one is operating to operate them. You need both.
at this point, would it be helpful maybe in getting a letter from him, sending it to
It would
DOT?
be wonderful to get a letter from him, but I think somebody has to sit down with them and go through the grant.
Any members wanting to reach out?
And go through both grants. Again, one's issued, he didn't have any problem with that. One is an operating grant, which is a different kettle of fish, and somebody needs to explain it from your point of view.
The message is that we're capping an existing DOT program. We're not doing anything exotic or that they don't do. And we're trying to access that resource for this area, for Sweetwater and Uphill. And this is something that has been discussed for some time, is now coming to fruition. That it's, what we hear from FDOT is very promising and encouraging, but for one of you or 2 of you,
One.
well, one at a time, but who have a relationship with, who know him, to be able to say, this has been through a bit of discussion with you.
In my opinion, I think it's better if we wait just a little bit longer before we reach out to him, make sure that we have all the information that we need to move forward, and from our end to get our feet wet a little bit more with this, and for at least in my part, for me to have some real solid numbers and
Sure.
I hate saying this, but business plan and marketing plan of how we're going to proceed with this. So when we go talk to him, we have a good idea, and we're not just going, not knowing exactly where we're standing.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Great, good idea. When can you next meet? And somebody needs to call up Pepe now and get an appointment in 3 weeks and get yourself ready. After that, quite frankly, DOT's made a decision, doesn't matter. If he knows you're wanting to meet him and you need another briefing where we get down to whatever, I will have at the next meeting the budget for the capital side. You have your capacity to amend, or actually I don't want you to amend the operating budget until we get our grant, because the operation budget is the budget until we get our grant, then we can change the operating budget. So really you have to sell what's here, plus the only thing that's not here is the detailed budget on the capital side, which you'll have at your next meeting. But I think the sooner he hears from you want to meet with him, whoever it is, even if it's scheduled for 2 or 3 weeks out, that's a good thing. Then meet with him 2 or 3 weeks out and we'll get the information so that whoever speaks to him is fully briefed.
On meeting when we have to meet as a board, I guess, to his office, or do we
No,
invite him?
What I'm suggesting is you meet in your normal course of business in, say, 2 weeks, and somebody of this board designated by the group, one person goes and visits them the day following that meeting. So, if you set the meeting 2 weeks from today, the following day, one of you is going into his office, because you arrange it now, and you'll have the best information I can put together for you 2 weeks from now, so that you can meet him 2 weeks and 1 day from now, one of you, and make your pitch. You've met with Gus, you've got your new capital budget, now of course we need operations. It's a pretty straightforward thing. I'll endeavor with Raul to make sure that there is a good operating and addressing some of his management issues. He and I can work on that together, but somebody on this board has to be the messenger who Pepe Diaz trusts, and he understands that this is a good expenditure of $500,000, and that
And want to
if you can
support
get
it.
him to bless it, that's a good idea. He did, by the way, sign the endorsement letter for Tiger. He was one of our county commissioners supporting Tiger. This is simply